Hey, I'm Pastor Rhonda.
And I'm Pastor Seth.
You're listening to Growing Hope.
Living Faith.
Welcome back to Growing Hope, Living Faith. We hope you're doing well. We're in the dog days of summer, finally.
Dog days.
Pastor Seth?
Oh, we are doing well. So it's been really, really hot.
And humid,
and muggy, and all those kind of fun things. And but you know that even in the hotness, there's still good things that happen. So we actually had our first 2 eggs from our chickens yesterday.
No way.
Yes.
Seriously.
So got 2 eggs yesterday, and we had some scrambled eggs last night, and they were good. They were good.
Really? I was about to say, did you eat them already?
We did, yeah. So my daughter, Emery, she went out and found them. You know, I built this nesting box. It's a roll-away nesting box so that hopefully they would lay the eggs in there. And when the eggs, you know, once they plop down, they'll roll down into this compartment. But, of course, they didn't lay the eggs in there. So, you know, they laid them out on the floor. And my daughter went out and found them. And now she's very, very excited about going out and checking for eggs and all of that.
I bet.
Which is really good, but they were really small. They almost look like quail eggs. Not quite that small, but I mean, they were like really, really small.
Wow.
So I don't know if they're going to continue to be small or if they're going to get any larger. But they were really good. So like I said, we had some scrambled eggs last night, and my wife doesn't like scrambled eggs, but my daughter and I ate them for sure.
That's funny. I had, we were at church, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, and Pastor Mark has been asking questions at dinner, just kind of like conversation starter, kind of a thing. And so he asked one Wednesday night, he asked, how do you like your eggs? And I don't like eggs either.
Right.
And I can't do boiled eggs. I can do scrambled eggs a little bit. But when it was my turn to speak, like, how do you like your eggs? And I was like, in a pound cake.
That's right. That's right.
It takes a lot of eggs for a pound cake.
It does.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, we're hoping to get there to that point. And like I said, we didn't get any eggs today, though. So, you know, my daughter went out and checked a couple of times. And so no eggs today, but hopefully we'll get on a consistent kind of roll with them, and actually downloaded an app on my phone so I can track how many eggs we get and just kind of follow through and all that kind of stuff to just kind of see what kind of production we get out of them. And like I said, we're hoping that we're going to get enough to be able to give them away and let our friends enjoy them and all that kind of fun stuff. But we're a little bit of ways away from that as well. So, but that's good.
I have some empty egg cartons for you.
It's good. We'll need them. Like I said, we've been collecting, but hopefully we're going to need them. That's the hope and the goal is we're going to need them. So you got to do songwriting retreat.
Yes.
So that's why we didn't record last week, but tell us how that went.
Oh my goodness. Well, it wasn't really a retreat like I normally have. But a lot of my songwriter friends in our community, we all just picked a week in the summer and we all went to Nashville, and all of us, but a lot of us went to Nashville and some live in Nashville, and we got our own places to stay. So we weren't like having meals together and that kind of thing, but we arranged our own co-writes, and I wrote 4 songs last week.
Boom.
One I'm so excited about because I've had this idea for over 2 years, and I've been singing this partial song in my head, and the Lord has actually woke me up in the middle of the night with more lyrics, and I've had to like grab my phone and try not to wake up Eric when I'm over there typing, lyrics into the phone. And I was able to write that with Sue Smith, and I was so nervous. It was just the 2 of us, but it turned out so good. I'm so excited about that song, and praying for a good cut. And I had a song that was cut by the Foresters.
Boom.
I can't say that well. The Foresters.
Yes.
And it's called God Knows When, and that came out on last Friday. And then I had a publisher to pick up like a bunch of my songs, and I got the contract. We talked about it earlier in the spring, but I actually got the contract and got all that ready to send back.
Sweet.
So that was a big week for songwriting.
That's
for
awesome.
me. Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
It's good.
And I get to see a lot of my friends in the industry. I feel like I kind of work in 2 worlds, kind of operate in 2 worlds, but I'm sure you heard the devastating news about the group, the Neelands, and they had a plane crash a couple of weeks ago, and 3 of the members passed away, and I did know them. I wouldn't say we were close friends, and we were close enough for me to go to weddings and bridal showers and all that, but I do know there's people that were like very, very close.
Right.
And so, I knew them, and wonderful people, sweet people, precious people. And I don't know, it was a beautiful service, and just a lot of people that said, like the preaching was just so good, and different people had speaking parts, and it was just, I don't know, everybody seemed to touch my heart that
That's
spoke
good.
yesterday. And so that's good. And I think Autumn, she's young, she's expecting their first baby in December, and so she's going to be bringing this baby into the world without knowing its grandparents or aunt and uncle and that kind of thing. But, she was able to get up and sing yesterday with the Isaacs. They invited her to come sing. And Sonia Isaacs is one of her, just idols. She's always loved her. She kind of mimics her and kind of sounds like her. But she sang with such strength yesterday. And it was just, I was just mesmerized and captivated by the whole thing, just watching it unfold, because it was just a picture of grace, that she was able. And it was funny because Sue Smith and I had written that week before, and what we were talking about at one point, I said, people just underestimate the strength of grace. Grace is so strong. We think of grace as something, beautiful and all that, and it is, but there's a sustaining power of grace that will carry you when you cannot carry on. Yeah. And that's grace at work. And we got to see that. And then we were also in our co-write, we were talking about heaven, about how it's really not that far away. I think people have this idea that it's just beyond the stars and the moon and, galaxies just way up in the atmosphere somewhere. And there's this land far away, but it's closer than we think. Yeah. And we can't see into that realm. And I don't know if I'm sure you do. NT Wright, he can explain it so well. But yesterday, in my co-write, Sue and I were talking about that, how there's a curtain between heaven and earth. And that when we are in the presence of Jesus and our loved ones that are in the physical presence of Jesus, we're doing the same thing. We're worshiping him at the same time. And there's just a curtain that separates. So we'd had this conversation in our co-write. And then yesterday, Gloria Gaither got up and she started saying the same thing. And she was just talking about, and Sue and I, we were sitting next to each other, and we just looked at each other, and she reached over and got my hand, and we were just kind of holding hands there for a minute while Gloria was saying everything we had just already said days before.
That's awesome.
But yeah, just very, very sweet service.
It's good. Yeah. I don't know a ton of their music, but obviously I've just kind of seen some of the stories that have been online, and saw some of the service, and yeah, it definitely just seemed very, very sweet spirit, even in the midst of the harshness of life. I'll
have to send you some of their music. I think you would like.
Yeah,
they were very well rounded.
Right.
They could sing inspirational. They could sing bluegrass. They could sing Americana. They could do, more than wonderful, like, Sandy Patty kind of. They could really do just about anything.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I've definitely read up on, just kind of everything of how it all, kind of happened and stuff, just on my aviation side, which is kind of weird because I feel like I almost have like these two different sides of the coin that I'm looking at. A lot of people were like, man, why would you, read about crashes and stuff? But it's like, you read about it because you want to know the mistakes or the things that happen in case it ever happens to you. That way,
as a pilot,
you would be ready and maybe have thought through. All right, well, this is what I would do in that situation, in those circumstances. Now, obviously, they were, in a big plane and all that kind of stuff, and so, but yeah, so it's very, very, very sad, and but I'm glad you got to go to that and experience that, and got to see a lot of your old people, just some people that you knew, from back in the day. As from riding
that big choir, I was thinking, I have interviewed every person on that stage, or at least every group on that stage, including Bill and Gloria, and they're just people like us, they're no different than us. And I had the privilege of going up to the Gaither studio. They've closed it. They used to have a cafe and studio that you could walk through, like a little museum. And we were up there, Judy Nealon, and that's how I got to know the Nealons, because I'm real close to Judy. And Judy's the mother, let's say the stepmom. But anyway, we were at the Gaithers Museum, and Gloria literally walked me and Judy around, just the three of us, and gave us a personal tour and told us all these little stories about all this, memorabilia stuff they had in this thing. And, but I was just thinking, she's just as common as can be.
Yeah.
And so was Bill. I saw their house. They, have this big yard with this big fence, and it backs right up to a Church of the Nazarene. And so I said to Bill, I said, I'm a Nazarene, and I see the church next to you. And he grew up Nazarene. Of course, they're Church of God in Anderson now, but they're just normal people. All of them are. And, but it was good to see a lot of faces. And I really enjoyed the first preacher it was just a good reminder that when we don't know the facts, and you're talking about the aviation, he said we need to address the elephant in the room. Everybody's wanting to know what happened. Everybody wants to report what went wrong, what was their last moments like, and all of our minds go there. And he said, I don't have that report. Nobody has that report. We don't know what happened. We don't know what their last moments were like, but this is what we do know. I have a report that, to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. I have a report, that, in his presence is fullness of joy. And it was really, really very comforting.
It's good. It's very, very good. So, I think we're in a season right now, I think where, at least for us and our family, my kids start school tomorrow. And so it's good to kind of think about, once again, just that normalcy. And I think that the passage that we're looking at today really kind of points to that normalcy. In this passage, it doesn't just apply to us, it applies to everybody in life, but it's a way of life. It's a way of living.
Right.
And we're going to be looking at the Ephesians passage today, just for probably a few short moments. We may not go crazy long today. But we're going to be looking at the Ephesians passage, which really does talk about this mentality of what are we putting away and how are we living? And like I said, the great thing is it's from top to bottom. This passage is for all of us, and to be able to embrace. And so, like I said, like even for us, as we are entering into maybe this different season, of leaving the summer kind of season back into school season, it's just a good reminder of the life that we're called to live.
Right. And we have no guarantees. We don't know when our last day on earth is going to be. And I think this passage helps us stay. It's just I'm a very practical person. Yep. And I think this is such a practical passage that we can just literally take to heart. And you don't have to do a lot of background study. Like, who's the audience? What does this really mean? It's just, when you get down to put away from you all bitterness, be kind to one another. This is some very basic stuff, but it's basic stuff that we really, truly need to take to heart to live out. I think the title of it says, put away evil, live in love. We are to live in love on a daily basis. Yeah,
that's 100% right. So I'm going to read this passage for us. Okay. It's coming from Ephesians chapter 4, starting in verse 25, and it reads like this. So then, putting away falsehood, let each of you speak the truth with your neighbor, for we are members of one another. Be angry, but do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger, and do not make room for the devil. Those who steal must give up stealing. Rather, let them labor, doing good work with their own hands, so as to have something to share with the needy. Let no evil talk come out of your mouths, but only what is good for building up, as there is need, so that your words may give grace to those who hear.
Oh, we can repeat that one.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, that's verse 29. So let no evil talk come out of your mouths, for only what is good, but only what is good for building up, as there is need, so that your words may give grace to those who hear. And do not grieve the Holy Spirit of God, with which you were marked with a seal for the day of redemption. Put away from you all bitterness and wrath and anger and wrangling and slander, together with all malice. Be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, as God in Christ has forgiven you. Therefore, be imitators of God as beloved children, and walk in love as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us, a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God.
Wow. My goodness. If everybody implemented this.
Yes.
What a difference. I was thinking maybe we need to send this passage to all of the political candidates.
Yeah, maybe so.
It sounds like now the commercials are starting, and it's like, oh man, it's like just, it's
not looking forward to it.
One another for sure.
No, I dread this season.
Yeah. So verse 25 it says, "Put away falsehood. Let each of you speak the truth with your neighbor." And sometimes we think, oh, we pat ourselves on the back and we think, oh, we don't lie.
Mm,
We tell the truth, but there's so many ways to lie. You can withhold the truth,
mm,
and or you can exaggerate the truth,
mm,
and my goodness, all that can be so dangerous. But it says, "Put away all like falsehood.
yeah.
Let each of you speak the truth with your neighbor." And who's our neighbor?
No.
Everybody. For we are members of one another. We belong to each other.
Yep.
And, being dishonest, whether it's, being dishonest in our business dealings or you know, our dealings with our neighbors or whatever, our family members, we can really cause damage when we exaggerate or we withhold or we just straight up lie. White lies or,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what it's saying is like essentially it's not just damaging to them, it's also damaging to you. And that's oftentimes I don't think we really think about life, community. We don't think about it that way. Once again, we're such an individualized society. Western culture is such an individualized thing, and
Yeah.
it's so easy to get so just wrapped up in ourselves and our thoughts and the things that we think affect us, without realizing and even thinking through how what we do affects the people around us,
Right.
and then really even the people on the other side of the world. We do that so much, even in the church, right? Like we make and we say and state things in the church of beliefs or ideology that is just so Western on such a deep level. And we forget that, I mean, there's churches all over the world and Christians all over the world that they don't look like us and have the same cultural realities as us. And so I think we've got to be very careful sometimes in the things that we put out because, with social media, with Facebook and all those things, when we put things out, it's a worldwide phenomenon now. It's a worldwide thing. It can go anywhere. So I
Right.
think we've got to be very, very careful. We should speak truth. I think how we speak truth really does matter, though, in a big way.
Right. Then, of course, be angry. Don't sin. Don't let the sun go down in your anger. I think we can feel anger, but to
Right.
let it fester, I think, is the issue.
Sure.
But I love verse 27. I think it's so wise. It says, "Do not make room for the devil."
Mm,
In other words, guard your heart. What are you putting in your mind? What are you,
yep.
allowing positioning? You preached about positioning a couple of weeks ago,
Yeah.
but it was a great message, by the way.
Oh, praise the Lord.
But making room for the devil, we've got to be careful. We've got to guard where we position ourselves and be careful when we stew on our anger. We're just like positioning ourselves to let bitterness grow.
100%. Well, like if we're going to tell each other the truth, then we've got to be receptive to that. And sometimes when people tell us the truth, it's easy to get mad instead of being introspective and saying, "Oh man, that's good." Maybe I should take that to
Yeah.
heart. It's a whole lot easier to be angry and be mad. And so, I think that's a direct flow for sure out of that first verse, like if this is who we're called to
Right.
be, if we're going to hold each other accountable, we're going to speak truth to each other. We realize that we're all one, we're all connected, and we're to kind of build each other up, which kind of was what he goes into. We've got to be receptive to our neighbors, and we've got to be receptive to conversations that we have with our neighbors. We've got to have open minds and open hearts, because it's so easy, once again, to be angry and then just to be internal and to internalize everything and pull away from this community and reality of what he's talking about here. And I think when we do that, what we're doing is we're giving the enemy the reality to have that foothold,
Right.
to where it's no longer about the community of faith. It becomes about us. And then when it becomes about us, and then it's so much more easier, I think, for the enemy to have that foothold when we make it about us, as opposed to about the reality of the community. And so I don't think it's bad to be angry, but what do we do with that anger, and how do we diffuse that anger? I think is kind of what he's talking about here.
Right. And then it continues about this otherness, this whole idea.
Right.
He says, "Do not steal, give up that, but rather labor, do good work with your hands." In other words, do things with your hands instead of stealing. But then the point of it is to have something to share with the needy.
That's
Again, it's this whole idea of the reason why you don't need to be stealing and you need to be working is so that you always have something to give. It's about generosity. Again, it's about other people.
Yeah. And, I don't think that's an extensive list where he says, all right, if you steal, stop stealing so that you can do something. But, I think the call is we should run and take this and run with it. You know what I'm saying? And not just leave it there and say, oh, well, he only talked about stealing. So that's really the only really big thing that really, really matters. So I'm not stealing, so I don't really need to worry about that. But like I said, I think it causes us to be introspective as our neighbors and as we are communicating and having these conversations and these truths with each other. We should take those things that that people are bringing to us and say, all right, man, well, this is what I was doing and this is how it was hurting other people. And it may not be stealing, but this is a great example of the reality of how do we turn this around, that stealing is very much something that takes something from someone instead of lifting someone up. And so, man, what am I doing? How can I change? Although I may not be stealing, how can I change what I'm doing? How is this bringing others down? And instead of doing that, how can I change that to actually be doing something that benefits the community as opposed to hurting the community?
Right. And it continues along that same thought, even with the next verse where it says, oh, my screen just went blank. Let no evil talk come out of your mouths, but only what is good for building up as there is need, so that your words may give grace to those who hear. Again, let's think about other people. Our words tear down people, and our people need grace. People need encouragement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if we talk in ways that bring grace, then there's less likely of a chance for them to be angry, I think. You know what I'm saying? If we're coming from a place of true genuineness, of desiring for community to be better and for life to be better for people, then like I said, we'll be talking with that reality of grace.
Sorry.
You're fine. No, it's good. We'll talk within that reality of grace and to bring grace to people, and essentially, like I said, I think there's less opportunities for people to kind of have that anger that that was mentioned earlier on. And I think it does something within us, once again, that, evil talk, I think can really bring us down to a dark place.
Right.
It seems like whenever I'm having conversations or, even if there's just a little bit of gossip or whatever, like it's easy sometimes to come into the end of that situation and for me to be at a lower place than where I was before. You know what I'm saying? And so I think, like I said, I think it's just as much a benefit for us as it is for others. But it leads us to a place of, like I said, being grace givers as opposed to people who bring about destruction in the world around us.
And then skipping down to verse 31, put away bitterness, wrath, anger, wrangling, slander, malice, and be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another as God in Christ has forgiven you. I was keeping my grandkids one day, and they're just getting to that age now where they fuss a lot, and I'm trying to get them to memorize, be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another. Yeah. And, but yeah, they got tired of that Bible verse by the time the evening was over, but my goodness, kindness. How far, if everybody put that into practice, like I'm going to watch what I say, I'm going to let my words be graceful, I'm going to, not be bitter, but I'm just going to be kind and tenderhearted towards one another. What a difference that would make if we just all concentrated and worked hard on being tenderhearted. I think sometimes we go through or we see, just even bringing up the presidential stuff that's going on. You just see mudslinging on both sides, and I think that affects us. We get so used to hear name calling. We get so that we think that is a normal thing, but that's not tender-hearted. It's like we just, I don't know. It's like we've lost that art of just being kind and just, you can oppose, you can have different opinions on policy, but I don't know, the name calling and all that, that's just our society.
Yeah. It's
sad.
hard, sad, yeah, for sure. And because the reality is once again, we're marked as different. And he even says that, that we have this seal of redemption. So like, don't grieve the Spirit. There's this reality is that the Spirit desires for us to live in a certain way. And the question is, are we going to live the way the Spirit wants us to live, or are we going to live the way the world wants us to live? Are we going to choose to live into evil, or are we going to choose to live in this reality of love? Because we're sealed, we're marked differently as the people of God. We're marked for redemption, and I'm thankful that we serve a God of redemption. We serve a God of reconciliation. That, I mean, to me, that's what we're waiting for, right? Is the ultimate redemption of all things, the reconciliation of all things. And so, are we going to live into that here and now, in how we go about living our life right now, or are we going to live this other way, where our tongues aren't tamed? You know what I'm saying? Where our tongues are loose. And words are a very, very powerful thing. There's that little kid saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And it's just a load of crap. I mean, on such a deep level, words are such a hurtful thing and can penetrate so deep to the heart. And we have grown accustomed, like you said, to everywhere around us, everywhere we look around, nobody is careful with the words and the slander, the things that they use, and it's invaded the church, I think, on such a deep level that we've gotten to a place where if someone, once again, doesn't agree with me, instead of having an open conversation, trying to come to a place of truth, it's so much easier just to say things, and like I said, to talk about them behind their back, or to call them whatever, and it's
spread falsehood.
Yeah, absolutely. And all of those things, I think, are so far from the heart of God, and so far from what it means to be a people marked by redemption. And it's so far from the place that God is desiring to take us. And I think Paul is, once again, just saying, like, come on, like, we are called to be different. We're called to live a different life. And the question is are we going to live like the world and do what the world tells us to do, or, live the way the world lives? Or are we going to be in the world, be around all of those things, but be so marked by redemption and be so connected to the reality of the Spirit that we live life different? It doesn't mean that we just don't look at life or look at things and situations or look at wrong and say, well, we're not going to do anything about that. But no, we speak the truth in love. We speak the truth in grace, and the way that we act and the way that we go about doing things, that as people are interjecting into our lives, we take what people say, we evaluate it, we bring it to the throne, we talk about it with other people, and we say, man, maybe this is really an area that God, I need to give over to God. And I think that's part of holiness. That's what holiness is as God reveals, as our neighbors reveal, as we reveal in community. Sometimes I think God pinpoints and puts things, and he says, hey, I need this, this is something in your life that I've really, really wanted. You haven't been ready to give it up, but now is the time. I want you to give that to me. Are you going to be willing to give that to me or not? And lots of times it comes back, I think, to a lot of these things like slander and malice and all of these things that are emotions sometimes of the heart, and things of the heart that are really, really hard to deal with. But what are we going to do when those things are revealed, and what's going to be our process and response when those things are revealed to us?
And then I think he boils it all down to this is the one thing that you need to do. Chapter 5, verse 1, be imitators of God as beloved children. We are his sons and daughters, but we are to imitate him. Good. How did Jesus live? Did he slander? Did he, you get through this whole list, he didn't steal. He didn't, wasn't bitter and didn't, have malice, but he was kind. He did all those things. Right. But we are to be imitators of God as beloved children, walking in love as Christ loved us. As Christ loved us, and he loved us when we were yet sinners, right? Right. But it says, walk in love as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us, a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God. So that's how we are to live. That's how where our focus needs to be is imitating God. And we have to study him. We have to look at his life. We have to imitate him. I mean, I don't know if your kids went through that stage of she's copying me, he's copying me, you know, kids do that, but that's what we are to do. We are to examine the life of Jesus, and we are to imitate that.
Yeah. And how will they know that you're my disciples? It's the love that you have for one another.
Right.
Right. It's all there. I mean, it's just all over it, all over it on such a deep level. And so like I said, that's going to be the thing, is what's going to be our response? Are we going to respond truly because the common way to respond is an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Like it's evil for evil. And everything in the world, more often than not, that's how it's predicated. That's why we want to have a big stick. And that's why, as long as, hey, we don't have to attack somebody, but we want to make sure that we have a big stick so that nobody comes and attacks us. And it's like, there's all of these different realities of the way that the world operates. And we serve a Savior who says, yeah, that's not how I'm going to operate. No greater love than this. And then a man would lay down his life for his brother. And it's like,
gave himself up,
yeah,
a fragrant offering.
And so within that example, the question comes to us: how are we going to live life? How are we going to live life day in and day out? What's going to be our response? Are we in a community where we have people who are speaking truth into our life? Are we taking that truth and applying it so that we can be better community people, all right, or better serve our communities around us? Better neighbors. Yeah, that's good. Good way to put it. Or, do we hear truth, and instead of taking that and applying it, are we slandering those people who are actually telling us truth? Are we bringing people down that we should be bringing up? And then if we are truth tellers, how are we telling people truth? Is it in a graceful way that is building up, as opposed to tearing them down? Man, I think these are all questions that arise from this passage, and I think are questions that we need to be struggling with as we journey forward as the church.
Right. I definitely agree. Well, this has been good.
Yeah.
It's been a good conversation, a very practical passage, and it was good to catch up.
Yes.
We didn't get to talk last week, so I enjoyed that. And I hope you guys did too, and we would love to hear from you. We do have an email address at growinghopelivingfaith@gmail.com.
Yeah, we also have a Facebook page. Yeah. So it's Growing Hope Living Faith Podcast. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or any of that kind of stuff, or if you grow chickens and you have eggs, and you have really big ones, and you're like, hey, you need to make sure your chickens have this to be able to, then just tell us that kind of stuff too. So that's good.
You're just getting started. They're going to start growing.
That's going to be
He's going to start having those jumbo
eggs. Ostrich eggs. Yeah, that'll be awesome.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. Well, we do love you all. I'm pretty hope you have a great rest of your week. Have a great day Sunday and a good week next week. And know that we love you and are praying for you. Grace and peace. God bless. Bye-bye.